In the alien terrain of Iceland, there exists a kind of crystal with properties that might fit the description of the magic sunstones given in the sagas. Maybe the Vikings found the crystal during their first exploration of the island.
Well, the idea is that you are looking up into the stone from beneath, and then when you turn the stone, you will see the color, the light change, and when you have the right direction to the hidden sun, then you will see a special color in the feldspar.
But there's a catch. For the stone to work, the sky directly above must be clear, and the sun no more than 10 degrees above the horizon. Conditions so particular as to virtually rule out the crystal as a reliable navigational aid.
We have tried to make the sunstone work, but we haven't succeeded here, actually.
For Vinner and other experts, the secret of Viking navigation lies not so much in fanciful instruments, but in simple seamanship. Watching the flight patterns of birds, noting changes in the current and the winds, and of course, making the best of good old-fashioned luck. By good seamanship, Viking mariners found their way across the Atlantic and brought news of encounters with strange landscapes. But good seamanship would count for nothing if Viking mariners failed to survive the rigors of a long voyage. And in open boats, in the freezing waters of the North Atlantic, conditions were perilous. Next, the Vikings' nautical prowess is proven. But how did the sailors survive nature's elements and stay warm and dry as they crossed the unpredictable Atlantic? Conclusion of Secrets of the Viking Warriors after this. And now, back to Secrets of the Viking Warriors. At the Roskilde Viking Ship Museum, these two men have agreed to take part in a demonstration especially for this film. The plan, to compare the thermal efficiency of Viking-style mariners' clothing against a modern wet-weather outfit as worn by seafarers today. The modern suit is made of highly impermeable synthetic fabric. It's worn over a base layer of insulating synthetic thermal underwear. The Viking-style costume consists of an outer layer of goatskin, treated with fish oil and tallow fat to make it water and wind resistant. The undergarments are made from wool. Both sets of clothing function by warming air trapped between the underwear and the outer garment. By measuring any temperature change in the insulating air, we hope to compare the thermal efficiency of the two outfits. Our volunteers spend an hour exposed to a temperature of around 28 degrees Fahrenheit. The heat lost by the two outfits is then measured. Surprisingly, the replica Viking clothing has lost heat much more slowly. This test at least points to one conclusion. Based on a 1,000-year-old design, the Viking garment has proved to be a more efficient insulator. So, Viking clothing technology and Viking seamanship, together with archaeological evidence of progressive hops across the Atlantic, indicate that the Vikings were capable of that final step to America. But did they do it? The short answer is yes. In 1960, archaeologists discovered an actual Viking site in North America. This reconstruction is built on the foundation of the original. The settlement was situated on the island of Newfoundland, at a remote spot with a French name, Les Meadows. It was an amazing find, proof positive that in the 11th century AD, Vikings had indeed reached the New World. But Les Meadows, it turns out, bears no resemblance to the landing place described in the Vikings' own sagas, a utopian spot they called Vinland. If archaeologists could find the real Vinland, maybe they could finally lay the Viking story to rest, and perhaps reveal how events in North America came to signal the effective end of the Viking Age. Such a challenge has prompted Swedish archaeologist Mats Larsson to continue the search for Vinland. It's a quest that has taken him all over the maritime region of North America. Some 1,300 kilometers southwest of L'Anse-aux-Meadows, around 800 miles, Larsson has narrowed his search to the southern tip of Nova Scotia, near the port of Yarmouth. The rich farmland of the region testifies to a milder climate than that of Newfoundland. The vegetation is similar to that described in the Vinland sagas. But there was something more. Something special about the way the sea and the coast were interacting.
The sagas tell that when Leif Erikson came to his settlement in Vinland for the first time, his ship was stranded when the tide was low, and it was far from the sea.
So the first distinctive feature Larsson needed to locate was an estuary with a strong tidal reach. He found it here at the mouth of the Chicagan River. Twice a day, the tide ebbs and flows with dramatic speed. The sea retreats a distance of nearly a mile and then comes surging back. But an estuary with a strong tidal reach wasn't the only unusual feature described in the sagas. They tell of a nearby saltwater lake through which ran a freshwater river.
According to the sagas, the Norsemen settled on a lake through which the river flowed, and the lake was close to the estuary of the river. And that's exactly how conditions are here at Chicagan. Though the former tidal lake is now diked, which means the river can flow out, but the high water can't come in.
The dike has since caused the saltwater lake to all but disappear. But the Chicagan River does indeed flow through the one-time lake bed and empties into the sea. For Larsson, this is strong circumstantial evidence that he has found the real Vinland. But so far, he lacks only one thing: physical proof. Aided by a local Canadian archaeologist, Larsson is taking bore samples in fields just inland from the Chicagan estuary. He's looking for concentrations of phosphate, a telltale sign of early human occupation. To date, the phosphate mapping has remained inconclusive, but Larsson remains undeterred.
I have been disappointed many times looking here, but I always come back here because I think, is there any other place? And I think about it and look around. There isn't any other place which fits so well.
Chicagan may one day yield up its secrets. In the meantime, Vinland remains symbolic of the Vikings' last attempt at expansion, and the venture ended in disaster. The Vinland sagas tell of encounters between Viking settlers and a ferocious foe: Native American tribesmen. The sagas have a word for them: Skraelings. They were part of the great Algonquin nation. In the woodland of Nova Scotia, it's easy to imagine Algonquin raiders tempted by the isolated Viking turf houses.
The Viking communities of North America must have been pretty frail organizations, small in number, and with no real line of communications back home. So perhaps it's not surprising that they were eventually overwhelmed by the primitive, the Stone Age culture of the people that they called the Skraelings, the natives to that land.
Historians don't know for sure what happened in America, but the sagas do relate tales of killing. The Algonquin braves who encountered the newcomers were not afraid of the Vikings' iron weapons. They knew nothing of the Vikings' fearsome reputation. In the Algonquin, the Vikings had finally met their match. After several years, the Vikings left Vinland, never to return. The expulsion from America marks the effective end of the Viking Age. For over 2 centuries, the Vikings had seemed invincible. No venture was too great, no challenge too tough. But in the end, it was their thirst for glory that was to be their undoing. The Vikings' genius was sacrificed on the altar of their ambition. In this new world, now governed by feudal law, the warriors who had once worn a pagan badge of courage were destined to die out. In their wake came other kinds of Viking: the trader, the priest, and the kingly ruler. There was no longer room for the Viking spirit.